Before the video begins, I want to make a quick announcement. My good friend Reed, also known as RadAustin27, is selling these awesome zombie posters down in the description. If you want to check them out, a link is down below. Be sure, though, to use the coupon code JJ25. A link is down below.
You four must come with us. In time, it will make sense. Now.
Intruders on the base. Hacker 4.
Now we must go, quickly. There is a war to be fought.
War? What kind of war?
A war unlike any you have ever seen. The Great.
We're going to fight the war, Eddie. The Great War.
The Great War was teased very heavily. You know, like, it just seemed that the game would end with us fighting in the Great War in our Primus outfits, and it would be amazing. Nikolai spoke about fighting the Great War in Classified like 6, 7, 8 months ago, and we all got hyped. Samantha said at the end of Alpha Omega to Eddie that they're going to fight the Great War. It just seemed like in Tag Der Toten it would all come together. We even started to see clips of the Great War in Alpha Omega. The intro showed us scenes of this battle with the Keepers on one side, the Apothicans on another. Monty was in his true form. Everything looked intense. The area even kind of looked like Nuketown. For a moment we thought perhaps it even was in Nuketown, or maybe it's happening at the same time as Nuketown and we would join the battle late or something like that. It turned out none of that was the case. We got excited, we got hyped for the Great War, and then we never fought in the Great War in Black Ops 4. And the Great War was never really a factor in our character's plan. Our plan was basically like this: get the Elemental Shard, get the Agarthan device, and then, boom, we saved the day. No need to fight a Great War, no need to get our hands dirty. I don't know, and then, you know, that was our plan, but in Tag Der Toten, Nikolai kept saying, we're on the verge, we're about to fight the Great War. Listen to him.
My friends, old and new, we stand on the brink of victory. Element 115, Group 935, the Heltic Scourge, the MPD, the Apothicons. All of it will soon be gone. But tonight, we celebrate.
So what gives? It sounded so certain that Black Ops 4 would end with us fighting in the Great War, yet we never do. And that's what I'm going to explain today. We do in fact fight in the Great War. It's just not in the way you might expect. Let's jump into it. So we have these clips and scenes from the Great War, but what exactly are these clips right here? These are scenes from the Great War, but the time that they take place may not be as obvious as you think. So you'll notice in this scene we had the Shadow Man and Monty facing off on opposite ends of the army, leading the charge on the front lines. But you'll remember that the Shadow Man is actually stuck in the summoning key, and Dr. Monty, well, he's in the house, and I guess he was with Maxis until he devoured Maxis alive. So they're there. They're not actually at the Great War. Monty's in the house. The Shadow Man is in the summoning key. So this means that this scene of them fighting on the front lines had to have happened in the past. These are probably scenes from the original Great War, the one we read about in the timeline that happened January 15th, 1292, where it said the Great War between humanity and the Apothicons begin. This is the one that our characters were sent all the way back to at the end of Revelations, where we see them with their staves and the tunics. This is the one that Pablo Marinus is sent back to when he keeps receiving visions of, where he sees himself in the clutches of a Margwa and then is rescued by Primus. That's where these scenes come from. These scenes are not happening during Alpha Omega, and they're not happening during Tag Der Toten, despite the fact that we see them in their intros and outros. These scenes are happening all the way back in the year 1292, about 800 years before this map. So let's just establish that they're actually throughout Black Ops 4, leading up to it, towards the end, as our maps are going on, there is no Great War happening between the Apothicons and the Keepers. That already happened years ago. The leader of the Apothicons is stuck in the summoning key, and Monty is at the house. So you're probably saying to yourself now, well, John, maybe it happened in the past, but perhaps we're getting ready for the second war, the Great War Part 2. You know, that's what Nikolai is saying we're preparing and working towards. And the thing you actually need to understand is that there's two things going on as Nikolai talks about this looming Great War. The first is that it's a lie. It does not exist. They're not actually going to be fighting in a Great War. It was never in Nikolai's plan to fight in this Great War. You know, the Great War is actually exactly what they're trying to avoid. As he reads the Chronorium, he learns what needs to be done in order to correct the universe, and the war is not a part of that. In fact, even if they were to start another Great War, who would they be fighting against? Would they be fighting against Monty and the Keepers? Would they be fighting against the Apothicons? Would they be fighting both at the same time? Would this be a three-way Great War? Like, none of that really makes sense. If they were to fight in the Great War, I mean, I suppose they could be in the army of the Keepers, but Monty leads the army of the Keepers, and Monty is somebody they're working against, and they wouldn't fight with the Shadow Man. That wouldn't make sense. Why would they fight with the Shadow Man against Monty? So it doesn't actually work to have ourselves in a situation where we're fighting in a Great War. And Nikolai reads in the timeline that that isn't even at all what they're going to do. Instead, he invents this lie of the Great War, and this is to get everybody unknowingly on board with his plan. Everybody's on board with fighting a Great War. Remember the audience that he's telling this lie to. He's telling this lie to Primus and Ultimus, who are soldiers. It excites them. The idea that they're going to fight in this great war, this battle of good versus evil, excites the soldiers within them. These are warriors that are ready to fight to the last breath in order to secure a better tomorrow. They get excited for this. This is what they live for, and it's what allows them to have this Last Supper where everybody is celebrating and drinking, and they know because they are these great warriors that they are on the verge of victory, and let us toast to their looming victory. Well, as they're having this toast, Nikolai poisons them, and they all end up dying. You see, if Nikolai had said to them, okay guys, so here's how we save the day. We all need to kill ourselves. They're not going to be on board with that. In fact, they've been trying this whole time to find a way to save the day while also securing that they can continue to live on. So Nikolai had to invent this lie that they're going to fight in the Great War. That's what gets everybody on board, allows them to easily be assembled and then poisoned, and then Nikolai can finish everything off. So this was a lie he invented to the other characters. The next thing you need to understand about the Great War is also a little corny. Some of you might like this idea. Some of you might hate this idea. So they do fight in a great war at the end, but it's not a great war against good versus evil. There's no battlefield. There's no shooting weapons. It's actually a war against themselves. It's them defeating their inner demons. This is going to sound corny. It's like saying, oh, the adventure was the friends we made along the way. Well, this time it's the Great War was the internal struggles we defeated along the way. You see, these characters, they have this desire to save the day and also live. This is what doomed Richthofen. Richthofen found our character stuck in an endless cycle because he thought perhaps he can save the day as well as himself. They wanted their cake and to be able to eat it too. And that just continued this cycle of madness. Monty says it themselves. They are the ones that created this madness. And in order to set things right, they need to go away. Monty himself also is trying to find a way to end this madness without ending himself. And he knows The real way to do that is to get rid of everything that 115 and the ether touches, to banish it all to the dark ether. But he doesn't want that. So it takes Nikolai to defeat his inner demons and realize that the only true way to win this war that we have been fighting throughout many cycles, is to, well, defeat ourselves and to kill ourselves. And that's actually the Great War. It's Nikolai learning to overcome this inner desire, the inner demons that keep perpetuating this cycle. And it's not at all easy what Nikolai has to do. Remember, he needs to look at his friends, his brothers in arms, and smile, to say to them everything is going to be all right and we're going to fight this great war and win, only to know inside that they're not going to have a happily ever after, and he's going to murder all of them. He has to do it, though, because it's the only way to set things right. That creates a war within oneself. To betray your best friends, it's an act of treason amongst their own group, and that's not easy to do. And this creates a lot of internal conflict within Nikolai. To know that in order to save the world, you need to hurt those closest to you, well, that's a hell of a battle. And that's really what is going on in this great war. They do fight a great war, and they do win it, but it's not the great war that you might be expecting. And they've already won the great war. In fact, they've won the great war many, many times over. As many times as the cycle has repeated. Hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of times they've won the Great War. And every time it's ended the same way, with them in their tunics holding their staves in victory upon a hill. It's something we've seen since Origins. We saw it in Revelations. It happens with every cycle. For these warriors, defeating the Great War isn't that special. They've done it hundreds of times. But the one battle they can't seem to win is the one where they set aside their selfish desires and put the world in front of the needs of themselves. They want to find a way to live and save the world, but that's impossible. There's no way to save the world and survive, and it's something they could just never seem to get past, and that was holding them back. And they've defeated this great war against themselves that has left them trapped in a cycle of madness for thousands of years. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what the Great War actually is. It's a battle against oneself. I know it sounds corny. It might not be what you want. A lot of people probably wanted to see our characters in the middle of a battle with Margwas on one side and Keepers on another, and it maybe would have made for a really cool outro cutscene. I'm not entirely sure. I'm convinced. I would have hated if Samantha teleports to the Great War and then just fires a big blue laser beam at Dr. Monty and then fires a big blue laser beam at the Shadow Man. That would have been lazy. That would have been boring writing. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff that happens with symbolism here at the ending. It's the kind of ending that an English teacher would love, but it's not the kind of ending that maybe a Call of Duty fan would want, somebody who's looking for action and battles and wars. This is a great war against yourself, not a great war between the Apothicons and the Keepers. That war they've won already in the past in 1292 and have gone on to win that war many, many times. That's going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, maybe subscribe for more. I'm always covering zombies, so if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one. Have a wonderful day, and bye.